Clutch Trucker is filmed before a live studio audience. Hey YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Clutch Trucker here. Got my live studio audience with me. Rusty's being very needy tonight, aren't you? I don't know why. He just got groomed the other day, and he got his vaccinations the other day. So, you know, he's always very needy after that. Right, dog? Right? Yes, I get the lick on the nose. All right. Over here. Over there, buddy. There you go. All right. Well, I wanted to do a quick little video here about drivers. Don't let your dispatcher or brokers try to force you into driving illegally. For one, I know it's a lot harder these days since most of you are on e-logs. Still, well, I guess still AOBRDs for some of you until the end of this year, and e-logs, ELDs for most of you. But, you know, they used to really be really bad about that when more people were on paper logs about forcing you to drive illegally. Or, you know, in a case like, you know, I am on paper logs. And, you know, yeah, I got this load today. I was near about 30 miles away from where I delivered this morning in Mooresville, North Carolina. Load comes in while I'm driving over to my receiver this morning. And I see it picks up about 108 miles away, which is a good 2 hours away, especially because I had to drive on some back roads and some secondary highways in North Carolina to get there. So yeah, it took a full 2 hours to get there. Okay, I'd already driven a half hour. That's 2.5 hours. So drivers, do your math. 11 minus 2.5 leaves me 8.5 hours to drive. I get to the next shipper, and it's a load for a broker we've worked with a lot through Turquoise Trucking. And that's one thing. Turquoise has no problem with me calling the broker if there's an issue. The last company I used to lease to, you know, I won't say the name, but it rhymes with Indian Creek Express, would have kittens if I ever called a broker. They wanted to do that themselves, and they wanted to be able to call him up and say, oh yeah, he's on his way, even though I was like hours away. Anyway, one of the many reasons I'm not with them. These guys have no problem with me calling a broker, which is fine, which is the way it should be. I'm doing their load for them. Let me call you if there's an issue. So I'm picking up, and I'm looking at the dispatch a little more carefully, because really all I'd looked at on the way over was where I'm going and where I need to pick up and what time I needed to be there. I had until 1 p.m. to be there. It had a window. I made that window. Get there, I'm getting loaded. I'm looking at the dispatch, and it shows they want me to deliver at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning in Yonkers, New York, which is the shortest possible distance was about 660 miles, but that involved a lot of the New Jersey Turnpike, paying for the tunnel in Baltimore, paying for the bridge going across, what is it, Havre de Grace. It's spelled like, you know, Brett Favre, Havre de Grace, which, don't get me started on that. I have an issue with spellings like that. Okay, and then, not to mention, they wanted me to go across the George Washington Bridge, which is over $100 for trucks, guys. Yeah, that's the shortest route, 660. To take a little bit less of a short route, going up I-95 still, would have been about 710 miles from where I picked up, and that was going a little further north into New York State from New Jersey on 287 and going across the Tappan Zee Bridge, which is much cheaper than the George Washington. And where I was delivering to was north of the GW anyway, you know, north of Manhattan in Yonkers, so it's just a little bit south of the Tappan Zee. So it's only, you know, like 30 miles extra out of the way. Not a lot. But still, you'd have to pay for the New Jersey Turnpike, and unless you feel like going the long way around Baltimore, you got to pay for that tunnel, and I think that's at least $28-30 for trucks. It starts racking up quick. So I planned out an alternate route, which is going from where I was down in North Carolina. I was in Hamlet. I went straight up what was 202, which became 74. Kind of going up through the Greensboro, Winston-Salem area, becomes 74 again. Dumps you onto 77, you go on to 81 in Virginia, and come up that way straight into Pennsylvania, and then I'm stopped here tonight at the TA in Harrisburg. I'm gonna now run across 78, or well 81 till it turns into 78, then drops into New Jersey. Then I'm going to take up 287 that way, up into New York State and across the Tappan Zee, and that's a good total of only 100 or 700 miles. So actually even 10 miles shorter than taking the 95 route, and I didn't have to deal with Washington, D.C., Baltimore, all those extra tolls and crap. So I'll only have to pay I think it's only about 37 bucks, 40, something like that for the Tappan Zee Bridge. Hell of a lot cheaper way to go, and there's a lot less traffic this way. But anyway, they wanted me to deliver at 7 a.m., and here I am, and it's like, by the time I finally got loaded, 1:30 p.m. in North Carolina. I'd already started my 14 that morning, already made a delivery, drove 2 hours over to this place. Like I say, had 8.5 hours left. So I had no problem calling up the broker and saying, yeah, this ain't gonna work. The way you've got this scheduled, there's no legal way to do it. Like I say, don't let, dispatchers and brokers force you into driving illegally. For one, if you are on paper logs, and even if you're not, and you're on e-logs, don't let them make you feel bad for their bad scheduling. Not your fault. You're not driving a rocket ship. You can't drive over 700 miles in that amount of time, still do a 10-hour break, and make it in for a 7 a.m. delivery. It's just not possible. Not to mention when you're going in the boroughs of New York, you got to add at least an extra hour to everything. All right, so I told them, yeah, I've planned it out, I've looked at it, and reality says I could probably be there around 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So they said, well, we'll get back to you. Like I said, we've worked with this broker many times before, and yeah, they called me back and said, okay, is 2 p.m. a good one still? And I said, yeah, I've planned it out. 2 p.m. should work, barring any other issues, major traffic jams, what have you. And so then my company did send me a new rate con. Those of you not owner-operators are not familiar with rate con. That means rate contract. Just basically tells you everything you need to know about the load, where you're picking up, where you're delivering, and how much it's going to pay you. Being an owner-operator, I work on percentage. I don't work per mile. This load is paying me $1,750. Well, not technically to me. My company takes 15%. I make 85% off everything. So, still pays pretty good. To me, that's still over about $2 a mile, even running the way I'm going to run. Not bad. So yeah, I said I can make it around 2 p.m. I thought maybe they were going to push it to the next morning, which kind of would have sucked, but I could have dealt with that. Still, it pays pretty good. So yeah, we got it rescheduled. Got no problem doing that. Drivers don't hesitate if your dispatcher or a broker is trying to set you up on something that is just not going to work. Plan it out. Do your planning. I'm a planning guy. All right. I always have 2 or 3. I always put it into my GPS. For those of you curious, I run the Garmin 780. I always make 2 or 3 different routes. I plan everything out. I look at everything. And, I thought 2 p.m. was realistic. I got here, parked here tonight at 10:15 tonight. I used up 13 3/4 hours of my 14-hour clock today. This is about as far as I could go. And I'm going to finish tomorrow morning. All right, I'm going to leave here. So that means I got here 10:15 Central. Of course, I'm on Central Time on my log, so that's 11:15 Eastern, which means I can go on duty tomorrow morning at 9:15 a.m. and I'll leave here at 9:30, which gives me 4.5 hours to make it over there, and it should only be, I think it's just under 200 miles. So I'm allowing extra time. Now, that still may not be enough. Sometimes it's not. But that's being fairly realistic. I can show you my logbook here. My log sheet where, yeah, I used up my whole day. Look at that carefully. See? Look at all that stuff on there. Yeah, I started early this morning and yeah, finished late tonight. I used it all up, baby. So, like I say, there was no legal way to do it and be there by 7 a.m. The only way that could possibly happen is if this was a team truck, and it's not. I can't get Rusty to drive. I keep trying to teach him. He doesn't listen to me. Anyway, so that's my main point of this video. Don't let dispatchers or brokers, drivers force you into doing something ridiculous, or let you take the fall for their bad dispatching and bad planning. Just let them know it ain't gonna work. Say I looked at it, it's just not gonna work. Here's the reality, and here's the way it is gonna work. If they keep giving you crap about that, if your company keeps giving you crap about that, then you're working for the wrong company. If brokers that you've been dealing with keep giving you crap about that, then you're dealing with the wrong brokers. I have no problem telling a broker, hey, you know, other drivers in our company may work for you again, but I'm never taking one of your loads again. There's one or two, actually, I've told that to. So, but, you know, these guys, like I say, we've worked with them a lot before, and they were reasonable about it. They say, hey, we know the reality, and, you know, a lot of times these things get scheduled without somebody really thinking it through. So, use your head, do your planning, you know, and like I say, I averaged, even on my log, I did 660, well, let me pull it out again. Look at this again. 682 miles today, and I drove, you can see on my driving line, right there, 11 hours. That's an average of 62 miles an hour, because I ran through a lot of construction zones and 55 zones and so forth. And I have my own personal rule where I never go more than 3 miles an hour over the speed limit, usually 2. Keeps me out of trouble. I played leapfrog with another truck, some driver from Fresno, California. 4 or 5 times he passed me on I-81, and I'd pass him again. Of course, he'd pass me in all the work zones and all the slow-down zones, because he kept going as fast as his damn truck could go. Silly me, I'm a fussy little guy. I actually tend to follow the speed limit. Silly me, I know I'm one of the few. I'd slow down for those work zones and so forth. And then, sure enough, we'd come back out of them, and sure as crap, there he is, you know, and I'm passing him again. But, you know, hey, here's one quick thing, guys. A lot of drivers don't realize if you're caught speeding in a work zone in a commercial vehicle, you can get slapped with a reckless driving charge. That's huge. If you're a company driver, you lost your job. You're an owner-operator, you lost your insurance, which means you lose your job. So I'm not going to screw with that. I make too much money out here doing this to give that away just because, you know, I can't lift my right foot up a little bit. So anyway, that's just a kind of quick thing about brokers and dispatchers. Don't let them force you into doing things you don't think is legal, or would force you to drive in a manner that you think is unsafe or not legal. All right, just let them know. And if they have a problem with it, then it's the wrong company you're working for, or the wrong broker you're running that load for. Thanks so much for tuning in again to the Clutch Trucker channel. As always, please subscribe. I've got my lowly 13 subscribers. Subscribe, ring the bell, hit the like, sniff the magic YouTube fairy dust. As always, Clutch out.